Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Shadows of the Moon. Episode 3. Chapter 23 to 33. Raven. The moment he stormed out, I took a deep breath. My heart was fking hurting. The Liam that I knew was so far gone, that hurt too. I walked over to the door, locking it before picking up Damon's torn shirt. I dropped to my knees, letting out a shuddering breath. Why were things so sh-t? When one wanted to make it work, the other wanted to destroy it. But even then, I knew Liam was hurting. Yes, I couldn't excuse his behavior, but he was just the type of person who loved deeply. I understood that. Where Damon was able to cope and even moved on with Robin, Liam hadn't been unable to, letting his emotions and pain eat him up inside. I couldn't blame him for his stance. Liam. I placed my head in my hands. What do I do? And what was with the color of his eyes? That anger and darkness. Closing my eyes, I inhaled deeply, still clinging to that torn shirt. Damon's scent was soothing, but even then, couldn't get rid of the unease and worry I felt for Liam. I needed to talk to him too, I needed to reach him and pull him from whatever dark place he had pushed himself into. We needed to do this so soon. No matter what, tomorrow, right after Kiara and Al leave, we'll do this. Damon would listen, but it was Liam I needed to get on board. Remembering the way he had ripped my shirt off, a pang of pain shot through me. No matter how much I just wanted to curl up and cry, that wasn't who I was. Crying never solves anything. Standing up, I decided to shower and get all this sweat off. Once I had showered, I returned to my room, pulling on a pair of pants and an oversized hoodie before I walked over to my bed. Picking up my remaining parcels from yesterday, I began to open them. A gorgeous crystal lamp. It was pretty, but the excitement I would usually have was absent. I placed the lamp down carefully before opening the final package. It was flat. I don't actually remember ordering anything else. A pile of photographs fell out. My heart skipped a beat as my eyes landed on the very top one. It hurt. It felt like an entire hurricane of pain was unleashed within me. I clutched my chest, feeling the crushing emotions cripple me. My heart was ringing in my ears and tears prickled my eyes. Even knowing it would only hurt me more, I spread the pictures slightly with my shaking fingers, looking at the dozens of pictures of Robin with Damon. Him holding her hand as he kissed her cheek. Him kissing her lips. Him hugging her. With each image, I couldn't breathe. Hearing, knowing and seeing are three very different things. Goddess, please. My eyes landed on the final 4 pictures and I felt as if someone had just ripped my heart out completely. Despite the edge being blurred by what could be a curtain, they were images of them in bed, clearly in the throes of passion and both utterly enjoying it. My worth was nothing. Was I so easily forgotten? It's my fault though, right? I left. Who would remember me? I won't cry. I won't. I wiped my eyes with shaking hands, a sob escaping my lips as I backed away from my bed. I clamped my hand over my mouth, trying to stifle the sobs that were begging to escape. The pain I felt needed an outlet, but I couldn't cry. I would always keep smiling, keep going, keep strong. Tears trickled down my cheeks as I stared at my bed. Although I was now across the room, I still backed away further, as if being near them would harm me. But the damage had already been done. I knew he needed that support. But looking at those pictures, was there even any need for me? He said he wanted me, he said he missed me and he broke it off, but was I really what he wanted? Was I really worth either of them? Why couldn't I turn back time? I just wish the moon goddess left me mateless. That would have been better than this torture. I hate life. I slid down the wall, resting my head against the smooth painted wall and closed my eyes, my L.P. quivering as I tried to control my emotions. Come on Raven, you are stronger than this. I stayed there, trying to contain my emotions. After a good 20 minutes I got up and went over to the bed, quickly gathering the pictures up and trying not to even look at them. Who took these and sent them to me? Why would they? Did someone else know he's my mate? We hadn't really told anyone. Shoving the pictures into the bottom drawer, I left the room. I needed to get something to eat, that would make me feel better. An hour later I was sitting in the large black and grey kitchen, at the counter on one of the bar stools with a large plate of steaming chicken pasta in front of me, when Zach entered the kitchen frowning. He went to the coffee machine and began making himself a cup. He glanced up seeming to have just noticed me there. Oh, hey Raven, didn't see you there. Have you seen Liam? No, I replied icily, remembering how he was refusing and hurting Taylor. He seemed taken aback by the hostility in my voice. Everything okay? He asked, coming over. Yes. I said haughtily. He raised his eyebrows. We both know that ain't true. He replied. I just hate men. I said, making him smile slightly, but he was wise to quickly hide it. What did they do? Or should I ask who? The door opened and none other than Taylor entered. I hid a smirk, seeing the way Zach tensed. Actually, I take it back. Some men are perfect. Hey Taylor. I said, swiveling around in my seat. Hey, girl. He said, coming over and giving me a hug. I hugged him back before we both turned towards Zach. Hey. Taylor said, looking at Zach. Hey. The tension between them was so obvious that I am surprised I didn't notice it before. You know. You two really need to just give in. The tension is suffocating me. I said, pretending to gasp for air. Taylor gave a small smile, but Zach seemed conflicted. His eyes met Taylor's and I didn't miss the way they softened. I wondered what exactly was going through his mind. Zach. Can I ask a favor of you? I asked, making him drag his gaze away from Taylor. Sure. He said, going over and finishing off making his coffee. As you probably noticed, things with Damon and Liam haven't been great, I began, glancing at the door in hopes no one heard. Yeah, I think we all have. Taylor added, grabbing 2 cans of Coke from the fridge before opening one for me and then sitting down on the seat next to me. I smiled appreciatively at him as Zach frowned, nodding. Yeah. I noticed that, being stuck as Delta with a Beta and Alpha who don't get on SVCKS. He came over, resting his elbows on the worktop as he leant over. You got a plan? Of course I do. I just need you to get Liam there, the rest is on me, I'm all ears. Zach said, his gaze once again going to Taylor. I smiled internally. It was only a matter of time before these two got it on, I was confident of that. So, what's the plan? Taylor said, gulping down his Coke. The plan, I leant forward as I began telling them exactly what I had in mind. Chapter 24 Liam. Everything else was gone from my mind. I didn't know how many hours had passed since I had begun to read the book. Some of it was far too worn to read, yet it was preserved well even then. Some of it was what we already knew, how the Deimos was one of the first 4 werewolf lines, alongside the Ashton and Solaris, and the new piece of knowledge was the name of the 4th line, the Volkov. This was the line that the very first Leakin was born into, but unlike the other three who were like royalty, the Leakin was shunned and ousted from the inner circle of the other three lines, as it was feared by the werewolves. It is interesting, considering it was the Lycans who were destined to be the kings who would rule over us, whenever born. The story was otherwise the same as what the witch Janina had once told Kiera and Alejandro, with perhaps a few minor additional details. This book was mostly about the Deimos line, how our line had moved away first and had been one of the strongest, conquering many lands and spreading our territory far and fast. The Deimos line was gifted with the ability of speed, to see the future, a sixth sense and the ability to foresee disaster. Traits that Kiera held, being a blessed wolf. Along with the Deimos traits and abilities, Kiera also had the Ashton ability, the gift of healing. When it came to light about Kiera being a blessed wolf, I had a lot of judgment from the pack how the alpha should have been gifted something, not the second-born daughter. It annoyed me, considering Kiera is no less competent than I am. She is my twin and my equal. But obviously, the pack didn't see it like that. Although they tried to be subtle, not daring to say anything in front of Dad, I heard it enough. The future alpha is ordinary, but the blessed princess has found a mate who is already so strong, making his pack even more powerful. Yet, apart from being one of the fastest and having a stronger sense of auras, I was just a strong alpha. I just don't get why she didn't leave this book to Kiera. Why me? I'm ordinary. She was the blessed wolf of two strong bloodlines, that all skipped me. I was halfway through it, or what I could read anyway, when the next section piqued my interest and I sat up straighter. The prophecy of light and darkness. I'm so tired though, I'll continue reading this tomorrow. Sighing, I snapped it shut, coughing as another puff of dust hit my face. Groaning, I shoved the book and card under the sofa before resting my head on the seat, my legs sprawled on the ground in front of me. The image of me ripping Raven's shirt off flashed in my head. I owed her an apology, but it wasn't enough. What was I thinking? I can't treat her like st. I needed to control myself. I closed my eyes. Have I ever considered making it work? The three of us? Yeah, and the entire idea doesn't sit right with me. But we are stuck in this deadlock. Maybe this talk is needed, because I am not going to let him have her. The same anger began rising within me and I exhaled sharply. Breathe, Liam, and don't think of it. I glanced at the clock on the wall, but it no longer worked. It is almost as if everything in this cottage had stopped in time along with its original owner. The future is still undecided. You are in control of your destiny. I don't know what Grandma Amelia was referring to when she wrote that, but I will decide my own destiny. Raven is mine. Deep inside, the doubt that perhaps I wasn't what she wanted clawed at my chest, but I pushed it away. I couldn't go on like this, I couldn't. I need her. The following morning dawned grey and cloudy, just like my mood. I left Grandma Amelia's home with that book and card in hand. I'll look more into it at another time. Locking up after me, I replaced the key where I usually hid it and returned to the pack house, making sure to avoid everyone, then placing the card and book into the safe in my room. Showering, I got dressed quickly as I needed to go see Kia and Alejandro off. I knew Raven would definitely go to see them off too, and I didn't want to run into her there. Not after last night. After I had visited them, I headed straight to the pack security building. It had everything, including the surveillance center. The cells were beneath this very building too, along with the morgue and the rest of the labs or holding rooms. Let's just say this was the headquarters of our pack, and it was the only place that not all members of the pack had access to. I made my way inside after scanning my hand and keying in the security code. The metal doors slid open and I walked past the entrance guards, making my way upstairs to one of the labs and wondering if Esteban, one of our forensics, had found anything on the new body. Scanning my hand once again, I entered the room. Luckily he was there, coat, mask, and gloves on, despite the body being covered with a sheet. "Anything?" I asked. "Alpha." He lowered his head to me respectfully before looking at the covered body. "Well, like the first, when we ran the blood tests there was the slight traces of wolfsbane, silver, and ricin. Ricin, as you know, is not something that can really do too much harm to a werewolf. However, it seems when it's added alongside wolfsbane and silver, which slow down the healing capability of a werewolf, it does wonders. But it's very faint. Whoever has done this thought it out. Like the first, the body shut down due to organ failure." I crossed my arms, thinking how well planned this was. Who was doing it, and why? Any idea on how the teeth were removed or the eyes? He frowned, his brown curls falling into his eyes as he placed the clipboard down, passing me gloves and a mask before moving the sheet back. "See these cutting marks? There's bruising on the gums where the teeth were pulled out. By the looks of it, I would say garden pliers," Esteban said, glancing up at me, his sharp hazel eyes turning back to the body after a moment. "Some sicko," I muttered. "And the eyes? Going by the striation marks or lack of them in this case, I would say a spoon," he said, making me glance away disgusted. "Right, we didn't find any residue or DNA, so the killer was probably wearing gloves," he continued, moving back. "As for the incision along the mouth corners, I would go with a small kitchen knife." Covering the body once again, he took his gloves off, shaking his head. "Whoever did this knew what they wanted to do prior." I nodded before thanking him, removing my gloves and mask before heading to the IT quarters. From the temperature of the body at the time of discovery, it was clear the person had been dead at least 2 hours before being discovered. It was all so planned out. Entering the IT department, I walked over to Zoe, who was our pack hacker and the smartest wolf I have met, when it came to computers anyway. "Did you manage to get the data?" I asked her. She looked up at me, pushing back her bright red curls. "Yes, Alpha, most of it, but gathering data from hundreds of people using the internet is going to take time. I'm getting there. Apart from having to wash my eyes out thanks to the amount of PN that is being accessed, I haven't come across anything disturbing," she said, blushing almost the same bright shade of red as her hair. "Filter out the trash and send me the rest. I'll take a look myself and see if anything has been missed." "Yes, Alpha," she replied, glancing up at me. I gave her a curt nod. The thing was, I didn't trust anyone. Leaving the room, I looked around, observing my men doing their jobs through the glass partitions of separate quarters. From watching the cameras to discussing something, to those standing around. The killer could be anywhere, at any rank and position in this pack. They could be on the inside, with a good chance of avoiding detection and covering their tracks. I didn't really care if I was hated. I really wanted to put everyone under Alpha command, but the only thing that made me truly hesitate was what happened with the Sangui pack, when Rayhan had visited them. His actions had only caused unrest within that pack. I cast a final glance around at my people. Those who caught me watching lowered their heads in respect. I gave them a small nod of acknowledgement. Who knows who the killer is and, above all, where and when will they strike next? Chapter 25. Raven. I had told Zack the plan and filled Damon in yesterday. We were going to do this at 11 p.m. tonight. However, I was feeling extremely confused. There were so many things that were eating me up inside. from the pain I felt in my ch3st when I remembered Damon's pictures, to the way Liam had treated me. When I had gone to bid Kia farewell, the way Auntie Red had remarked that I had just missed Liam was almost as if she suspected something was up. Yet I just remained smooth and blew it off. I was adjusting my dark pink ribbed top when there was a knock on the door. Who was that? I walked over to it, pulling it open. My smile vanished the moment I saw Liam standing there. Like always, he looked like a Greek god, in grey *NTS and a black and white graphic tee that stuck to his body like it was painted on, along with black boots. Why did he look so good? He had his hands in his pockets. His intense cerulean eyes trailed over me slowly. I suddenly felt very self-conscious about my fitted clingy top, with a V-neck that I knew showed off a hint of cleavage, and my black fitted jeggings. I saw his eyes darken with desire, lingering on my neck before they slowly met mine. My heart thundered and I clenched my jaw, trying not to fall for the hold he had upon me. If he thought I was going to let him do that again, then he was in for a reality wake-up call. Last time he took me by surprise, but not this time. "Can I help you?" I asked. I won't lie, it hurt remembering what he did yesterday. I hadn't been able to sleep properly last night thanks to that and the photos. For a moment, I wondered if he had sent me them. But I pushed the thought away. It wasn't something Liam would do. "Can we talk?" came his voice. "Isn't that what we are doing?" I asked, raising an eyebrow, trying to act like he had no effect on me. He clenched his jaw, looking away and frowning. I tried not to let his scent, or his very appearance, get to me. "What I did yesterday. I'm sorry, I lost control and I know I shouldn't have done what I did. It was a move," he said quietly. I looked up at him. "Really, Blue Eyes? Do you realize that now?" "It was, but you are literally making a lot of moves." "Liam, I get." I glanced down the hallway. After those images, I didn't trust anyone who may be listening. I jerked my head towards my room, brushing back my bangs that fell in my eyes. Stepping back, I allowed him in. Shutting the door, I looked up at him. Once again, I wondered who had sent those pictures. It couldn't be Robin either, as she was in the pictures. "You were saying?" His husky voice brought me back to the present. "I get that you care for me, but you can't go around doing things you're going to regret later." "Liam, do you know Damon is worried about you? He's trying to be the patient one for you. Don't you get it? You are the one. Tell me, Raven, if say the roles were reversed, and not you but your mate was mated to another, would you have accepted it?" The image of Robin and Damon together made my heart ache, but, if it meant his happiness, yes, I could accept it. I looked up at Liam and smiled sadly. "Yeah, it would hurt, but I'd understand because I wouldn't want to hurt him," I whispered. I had been through so much pain in life, and it seemed Selene wasn't done. "We are going in circles," he muttered, shaking his head. "Maybe you can accept it, but I won't." He reached over, running his fingers through my hair, making my heart thunder. I moved back, only for his eyes to flash a magnetic blue as he backed me against the wall. "Liam, you need to stop doing this," I said firmly, but my voice just came out pitchy and breathy. I didn't want to touch him, knowing those dreaded sparks would throw me off. "I won't ever stop, because I've staked my claim on you. I am not yours to claim, I don't belong." His eyes flashed as he pressed a finger to my LPS, making my breath hitch. "Oh, I wouldn't say those words. You are mine," he added dangerously, his finger running over my LPS, making my heart thud violently. My stomach was fluttering with nerves, and when he placed his other hand on the wall, that smirk crossing his face, I knew if I let him continue, he'd make me forget everything. I am yours, Liam, but I'm also someone else's. Can we not just be happy? I asked, taking hold of his wrist, slowly tugging his hand away from my LPS and holding it to my CH3ST. My heart was pounding loudly and I knew he could hear it. I could tell he was getting irritated again. I took a deep breath, raising his hand to my LPS and kissing it softly, hoping it calmed him. Something told me I needed to approach him lovingly. There was something about him that seemed to snap at times, like he went from calm to suddenly angry and aggressive. That seemed to work. His eyes softened and for the first time I saw the storm of pain in those bright, dazzling blue orbs of his, but it was gone in seconds. His walls raised once again. It had been enough to show he was struggling. 2 mates means another man would get to you, he said dangerously, but the embarrassment that hit me at those words made me forget everything. Don't go there. Oh my God. My dream was bad enough. Did you need to mention that? I hissed, mortified. He cocked a brow. What, darling, and I am not okay with my mate being with anyone else. Thinking with Liam was making my head feel light. Oh my God, let's not talk about this. He took hold of my chin once again, tilting my head upwards. I can't share you. His hand left the wall, slowly running his fingers up my thigh and onto my hip and waist, making my heart pound like crazy. My core throbbed and I swallowed hard. Let's figure this out together, I whispered softly. Do you think one sit down is going to solve things? His husky reply came, his gaze dipping to my CH3ST. No, but at least we can talk without our anger and ego getting in the way. I replied, I couldn't breathe. Fine, he said, taking me by surprise, before he moved away. I what? I asked, shocked. He raised an eyebrow, making my attention go to his scar, wondering how he got it. We might all be together. But I and Liam haven't even talked properly yet. After this talk, I promise I will give him some time too. I wanted to break down that wall of hatred he had built around himself. I said fine, call him. Let's get this talk over and done with, he said icily. I was glad that he suggested it, but now my plan to get Zack to lock us in the cells was gone, which meant if Liam wanted to run off, he easily could. What's wrong, bit size? Isn't this what you wanted? He asked coldly. I nodded, mind linking Damon to come to the pack house and telling Zack there'd been a change of plans. His good luck, you got this, didn't give me any consolation. Let's go to my office, Liam said coldly before walking out. I sighed, leaning my head back against the wall. This was about to happen. But what about me? What did I want to say? Was I going to be able to even speak? It didn't matter. Tonight, we needed to at least try to talk this out. Chapter 26 Raven. 10 minutes later, Damon arrived and entered Liam's office, shutting the door behind him. Hey. Hi. I said, our eyes meeting as Liam took a seat at his desk, placing his legs on the table and crossing them at the ankle. The arrogance and power that exuded from him were dizzying, yet at the same time, he looked incredibly handsome. Damon dropped onto one of the seats opposite, one leg stretched out, resting his elbow on the armrest. I could feel his aura too, and although it was nowhere near as strong as Liam's, it was powerful. Yet there was something warm and welcoming about it. Dressed in black Nike jogging bottoms, a matching hoodie and Nike sneakers. So different. Both were gorgeous. They both pulled at me, and once again, Al's words rang in my head. The fear that there was no way for all three of us to work ate up at me. Both of them were watching me. I wish I had grabbed the largest hoodie I could find to hide in. Their gazes were intense. I felt so small and bare. For two people who wanted to talk, you're pretty silent, Liam remarked, reaching into his desk drawer and taking out a small knife that he began playing with. I'll start, I said, smiling brightly. I was standing at the end of the desk looking at both men. Liam simply raised an eyebrow as if he was bored already. Arg, he is such an... You got this, Damon said through the link. Thanks, I replied. Okay. First, let's put how we feel on the table. No anger, no judgment, let's not even think we're mates, just how you feel ladies first. Liam said, spinning the knife and throwing it up before catching the blade between his teeth, making my heart pound at how dangerous that was. Goddess. Okay, you're distracting me, Liam, I said pointedly. He simply gave me a arrogant smirk. Good. I shook my head and looked at the table instead. I get that this is hard for both of you. In this scenario, you are both connected to me, not each other, I said softly. I want this to work, but I won't lie, I don't know how. Damon is willing to make it work, but Liam, you don't want to. I myself know how confusing this is. If it was a three-way mate. Gross. Damon cringed. No way. Liam shuddered. There is nothing wrong with two men being mated, I said displeased. No, there isn't, unless you consider the other your brother, Damon said sheepishly. And I'm straight, Liam said very adamantly. Yeah, the world knew that. From those two, I could see Damon as the one who could be bi. I shook my head, clearing another naughty image from my head. I blushed lightly and Liam glared at me. You better not be imagining anything. I was not, I denied vehemently. It's not my fault that my imagination runs wild. Damon snickered, earning himself a dangerous glare from Liam. Ever the alpha. Anyway, I don't want to hurt either of you. I love you both. I always have loved you both, even if that love changed to something else. Growing up, I loved Liam and hoped that he'd be my mate. That maybe I was worthy of him, hoping that if I was a good girl, the moon goddess would bless me with you. Damon always had eyes for Kiara, and I didn't mind that. I loved him as a friend. But when Uncle A passed away, that changed to something more. Then I was confused. All my life I thought I wanted Liam and then this happened. I know it's selfish, and both of you deserved your individual mates. Not just me, who is just, nothing special. I looked down at my hands, before my eyes blazed as I stared at them both with reborn confidence. But I have an ultimatum. I swear on my life, that I won't accept either of you unless you make amends with one another. If your bond, that bond you had as brothers, as best friends, is gone, then this mate bond is gone too. I will not let a newer forged bond destroy one that is years old. Stop hurting one another, because it's killing me inside knowing that I am the reason you two are like this. That I destroyed that friendship and brotherhood. I looked at them both, though my eyes lingered on Liam. That cold exterior had a crack on it and the guilt he felt was clear in his eyes. He stood up suddenly, walking over to me. Despite moving back, he pulled me roughly against his chest, wrapping his arms tightly around me, making me gasp and very aware of a certain something pressed against my stomach. Damon. I didn't want to hurt him either. I looked at him, he gave me a small smile and a wink that made me feel better. For a moment I let myself relax into Liam's embrace, inhaling his intoxicating scent. Someone's going to have to build bridges, Raven, and if that means you two working on your relationship, I'm all for it. His voice came through the link. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment I relished in the embrace, trying not to focus on certain body parts touching me before looking up at him. Please hear him out. I mind-linked him. I felt him tense slightly, before he moved back, leaving me feeling lightheaded and my heart pounding loudly in my chest. Your turn. Liam said to Damon coldly before taking my hand and making me sit in his seat. I looked up at him, only to see him sit at the edge of his desk, one knee bent on the desk and his other leg on the floor next to mine as he looked at Damon. Despite the hostility I could sense from Liam, he at least was willing to listen. Damon glanced between us both before blowing out a sharp breath. Threading his fingers together and placing 2 fingers on his gorgeous plump L, P.S. When you left, it hurt. Everything seemed to have fallen apart and I felt guilty. I knew that you always loved Raven, and then I was thrown into the mix. I know you hate the idea, but if you did agree, I promise that I will take it at your pace. I won't take her from you or expect more than you are ready for her to give me. He looked down. It hurt that he was yielding to Liam, but it also warmed me. Obviously, there had to be a way the moon goddess wanted this to work, right? They needed to be opposites. I stood up and walked around, placing my hand on his shoulder. I gave it a gentle squeeze. I looked at Liam, who was watching him coldly. His jaw ticked but he didn't speak, allowing Damon to carry on. I do love her, regardless of Robin. I needed to cope and that was the easiest distraction. Damon said. I could sense his guilt. Those images returned to me and I felt a pang of pain. Anything else? Liam asked calmly. But his calmness made me uncertain too. Right now I couldn't read him, but his eyes seemed to look darker than his wolf eyes. That same dark navy I saw yesterday. My heart was thundering. Damon looked up at me sharply, then at Liam, who was once again playing with the knife, his eyes hidden from my view. What was that? I love you as a brother, as well as my alpha and best friend, Liam. I don't want to ruin that. I'm holding out hope that you'll remember that this brother of yours never wanted to hurt you. Damon finished looking at Liam, who didn't even bother looking over. He simply nodded, icking his L, P.S. Fine, so you messed around as you needed a distraction? When I left, I told you to do what you wanted. Why didn't you two mate and mark each other? You had that chance. He asked us both. Despite the hatred in his tone, his voice was steady. I couldn't betray you, I wanted you to be okay with this. Damon said, quietly. And you, darling? Liam asked, yet the mocking tone in his voice made me frown. Neither of you bothered to pursue me and I didn't know what to do. I felt shocked, numb, confused. Neither of my mates wanted me. Back then I felt I was the extra in your relationship, so I ran away. After you left, Damon avoided me because he couldn't just forget you. Neither of you bothered to even try to talk to me. Hold up, let's not play victim love, Liam said dangerously. A frown creased his brow as he pointed the knife at me. I tried to mind link you that night and you didn't answer. I had drunk a lot that night, I was completely knocked out. I said, my heart aching. It was night. You could have tried to really? Then how about when I came to your house and your dad said you didn't want to see me? Did Dad say that? My heart was thundering. What was going on? Why would Dad do that? And what about those texts? Those messages that you read but never replied to. He growled, his eyes blazing. I frowned, my heart skipping a beat. What messages, Liam? He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone and unlocked it. After a moment, he held it up to me. I stared at the 3 messages that were clear on the screen and, sure enough, the word scene was as clear as day under the final text. Chapter 27 Raven. I stared at his phone, unable to focus on anything else but the words on his screen. Raven, can we talk? Please, I really need to see you. I get that you are hurt that I walked off, but please give me one chance, please. Bit size, don't ignore me. We're mated for a reason, you're meant for me. Please talk to me, just one chance? 5 minutes of your time. I'll show you what you mean to me, please. That's all I'm asking for. I don't want to do something I regret. If after this you want me to leave, I will. I never got those messages. I never got those messages. I ran my hand through my hair, barely registering Damon's hand on my shoulder. I looked between them, trying to focus before turning to Liam. I didn't get them, I swear, I never received them. I said truthfully. He seemed uncertain, but he should know that I'm not a liar. Well, in serious matters anyway. Is there a possibility someone else got onto your phone and deleted them? Damon asked, instantly raising his hands in surrender the moment Liam's eyes fell on him. I swear it wasn't me. My stomach twisted even when Liam scoffed. You're the only one that would benefit from it. Come on, man, I wouldn't do that. If you didn't manage to see her, how could I have managed that? When I went the following day. Did my dad also tell you I didn't want to see you? I asked softly. He nodded. I knew that realization had dawned on all 3 of us. Both of their eyes flashed dangerously. Your father's got an issue with me? Liam asked dangerously. I could feel his aura surge around him. I thought he liked me. Damon murmured, confused. How do I tell you both that my father is a twisted, mentally abusive misogynist? So, if Mr. Jacobs hadn't interfered, things could have been different. Damon murmured, frowning. Forget Dad, for now. Liam, it's your turn. I said, thinking I would deal with Dad myself. This conversation isn't over. Liam said, and I knew it wasn't. He had already been annoyed with Dad last time, and this was even more personal. His eyes seemed to turn even colder as he turned his gaze to Damon. You already know my standpoint on this, so why should I repeat myself? What more do you want me to say? He asked arrogantly before looking at me. I know you say you can't pick one, but I don't see how else this will work. I want you. I intend to make you fall so hard for me, you'll forget him. I felt a stab of pain in my chest. Damon ran his hand through his curls. It isn't that easy, Liam. If it meant just me getting hurt, I'd easily do as he wanted, but this meant hurting Damon too. Like I said, why don't you and Raven try working things out? Pretend I'm not even a part of this. If you think you can let me in, then I'll wait, I'll be fine. He looked at me as he said the last part, and even though I could sense the pain he was trying to cover up, he still smiled at me. I shook my head, glancing at Liam for a moment. He looked thoughtful before he frowned and shook his head. Don't hold your hopes out, I won't change my mind. And what about what I asked for? You two to be okay again, because I might plan on keeping a 20-meter distance from you guys until you are best friends again. I said, glaring at Liam. Things take time, so you can't expect it to happen overnight. He replied coldly. Well, start now. I replied, crossing my arms. We'll try. This is a start. Damon said, giving me a wry smile. I sighed and nodded, looking at the two men that I had a connection to. These bonds, the feelings, everything between them was different. They were solar opposites, each one so different, yet so perfect. The spark with Liam was like a live wire that shocked me to the core and made every inch of me feel alive. Around him, I felt like anything could happen. I was unable to predict his next move, and he took away the very air I needed to breathe. Promising me unconditional love, passion, and desire, knowing he'll protect me from anything and everything, but at the same time, he'll devour and consume me completely. Then there was Damon. He was that soothing warmth that tingled like an embrace on a cold winter's night. One that promised security, happiness, and contentment. One who would always be patient and listen to me, the one who would put up with all my mistakes and never get angry at me. The safe warmth of his aura was like a protective blanket. "Please, for this pack, for your parents and for me," I said softly. Suddenly, remembering the photographs, I frowned slightly, tucking my hair behind my ear in a failed attempt as the silky strand just slid out again. "What is it?" Liam asked. "Did they need to know right now?" No, this talk didn't really get us far in some manners, but in others, I felt we had made a little progress. "You can't get angry if I meet Damon, or talk to him," I said quietly. He frowned calculatingly, but to my surprise simply nodded. "Fine," he said, casting a withering glare at Damon, who simply gave him a half-smile. "But also know that I will do as I want, I assure you I will win you over." "Good, I doubt that will happen unless you start treating others nicely," I said, glaring at Liam. "Well, I'm going to head to bed, good night both of you." "Night, Raven," Damon said. Liam didn't speak, although I could feel his intense gaze burning into me. "Night, Liam," Damon said, standing up. "If you need me to do anything regarding the case, you know that's what I'm here for." I might have a job for you," I heard Liam reply coldly. "Great." Damon's reply came. I smiled gently. More than anything, I wanted them to restore their bond, a bond that was just as sacred. I heard Liam reply, but I couldn't make it out. Entering my bedroom, I was about to rush over to grab my phone and tell Kia how it went when there was a light knock on the door. "Now, who was that?" "Yet." No reply. Frowning, I ignored it, dropping onto my stomach on the bed and began to type my text. "Hey babe." Another knock. "What?" "Yet." Another knock. "What the actual?" I jumped off the bed, yanking the door open, my eyes blazing as I stared at a very muscular chest. My eyes shot up to see Liam standing there, a C0CKY smirk on his face. "Can I help you?" I asked extremely sweetly. "Actually, yet." I frowned, trying to ignore how good he smelt. "Well, I don't want to help you. First of all, when I said yet, it meant answer, you made me get up." I growled. He smirked. "If you're angry about getting up, I can carry you back to the bed," he suggested. My heart thundered, but before I could even reply, he rubbed the back of his neck, making my attention fall to the tattoo that peeked out of his shirt. I wonder what tattoo he had. I actually came to ask if we could actually talk, and I don't mean the SHT that we just talked about," he said. I looked up at him. "Just a small light conversation, even though I wanted that." "Sounds good, but only if you have something to bribe me with," I said, crossing my arm. "Apart from my good looks? Isn't that enough? Since when have you gotten so? Time changes a person. Come to my room in 10, I'll have something to bribe you with." Why your room? I asked suspiciously. He C0CKED his right brow. The urge to touch the scar was tempting, but I didn't. Tonight I'll ask him how he got that. My room, because you were okay to sleep over at Damon's. I rolled my eyes. Seriously, that again? Yeah, and I don't care if it sounds pathetic or petty as. I want you in my room in 10 minutes, and that's an order. He said as his eyes glinted. Although I knew he said just to talk, my stomach knotted under those burning cerulean eyes of his. One day, regardless of everything, I hoped the three of us could actually have fun and hang together like old times. Chapter 28. Raven. Well, I disobeyed him and took 20 minutes, since I decided to shower and change into something a little less body-shaping. Pulling on some tan-colored leggings, a sports bra asteriska and a tan oversized off-shoulder top. There, now I look like a raven potato. This is good, no intense stares from guys trying to look at my smaller potatoes. I cupped my B00BIES. Yes, they were small, yet they were nice and rounded, they weren't flat either. Maybe they weren't anything like Auntie Red's and Kiara's, but they would do. My little cutesy B00Bs, asterisk. I quickly applied some moisturizer to my face and left my wet hair open, making my way out of my room, locking my door behind me and knocking on Liam's. He didn't answer, so I tried the handle. It opened and I stepped inside, instantly hit by Liam's seductive scent of roasted walnuts, honey, and that underlying intoxicating note mixed with expensive cologne and leather. Trying not to focus on the fact that I was in Liam's room, I looked around. It was completely dark, save for the red LED light that ran along the black TV stand. A huge 65-inch TV stood upon it. The curtains were drawn, next to a huge king-sized bed covered in black sheets. The cushions were a dark red and the floor was covered in black carpet. A drinks bar stood to one side, a fridge stood in the corner near the desk, and he had a two-seater near the window with a small table before it. From the open door on the other side, I could see he had his own ensuite dressing room and bathroom. I was tempted to go have a peek in the fridge. I was sure it would be full of snacks and drinks, but I kept me in one place. There were other touches of red in the room, from the lampshade to the abstract art on the wall. The walls themselves were a pale shade of grey. Just then, the light came on and I saw Liam standing there with a tray of snacks. "Did you just get here?" he asked. 10 minutes ago. I lied smoothly. He didn't look convinced but didn't push it. He shut the door with his foot, locking it and making my heart race. Did I just agree to enter the wolf's lair, especially when I knew he was rather unpredictable? He placed the tray down next to the bed and walked over to me. I backed away and he simply smirked. "I won't bite," he said, his gaze dipping to my neck. For now his words sent a shiver down my spine. I swallowed as I watched him walk to his bed and sit down, crossing his legs at the ankle as he leaned against the headboard. "So, will you just stand there all night? Are you scared of what might happen, or is it that you just don't trust yourself?" "Oh please, I am not that easy." "I never said you were," he said, leaning over and taking a chocolate bar from the tray, my gaze instantly falling to those delicious arms of his. "Want one?" I pouted, narrowing my eyes as I watched him bite into the chocolate, his eyes locked on me. How could a guy eating chocolate? That familiar ache settled in my core. I swallowed, looking away. "Shall I put a movie on?" I asked. "If you want to." His reply came. Was that a hint of amusement in it? "I think so." He knew he was getting to me. I went over to the TV, grabbed the remote and switched it on. I selected one of the movie apps and chose a comedy. I then walked over to the tray, looking at the array of chocolates and sweets he had brought. Smiling when I saw the gummy bears. Grabbing a packet, I walked around the bed and sat right on the other end. Liam C0CKED bow. So, tell me. What have you been up to in the time we've been apart? He turned towards me, raising one leg and resting his arm on his knee. His eyes fixed on me. Training. I put everything into keeping busy. I said, now looking into his blue eyes as I opened the gummy bear packet. Can I ask you something? I nodded, watching him frown. You said earlier, that you started falling for Damon after his dad's death, and that before that you had feelings for me. How could that change? I know what I'm asking doesn't make sense, but I saw how he was trying to hide the hurt and even insecurity that he felt. It makes sense, I interrupted. You never made a move, Liam. You were always so reserved. I knew you were waiting for your mate, and I knew you were the type who would go after your mate because you wanted your mate. So, I never held out hope. No, that's not why I kept my distance, Raven. Yes, I was waiting for my mate, but the reason I never pursued you was because I was scared that you'd find yours and it would ruin everything. I loved you, but you were so unpredictable, so carefree, that something told me without that bond, I would never be enough for you. But obviously, even with the bond, I'm not enough, so you were given two mates. With each word, I could see that anger building. Without thinking, I scooted closer, placing my hand on his leg. Liam, stop that. I honestly wish I had just been given one, not two. All this heartache would have been avoided. I said bitterly. It sucked that both of them thought they weren't good enough in their own ways. Me being reserved was the reason I lost you. I don't intend to make that mistake again. He said huskily, making my heart thud when suddenly he pulled me towards him by my arm. I gasped when I tumbled forward, my head hitting his shoulder. Liam! I exclaimed, my heart thundering. He wrapped an arm around my waist, crushing me flush against him, making my core clench once again. Oh, please don't! I told you before. I will make it so hard for you to ever refuse me. I intend to make you mine and mine alone, darling. He said, his eyes darkening as his gaze dipped to my LPS. The way he said darling or love, really got to be, there was just something so different about it. Liam, I couldn't do this, goddess. My breath hitched when his hand caressed my waist. A small whimper escaped me when he squeezed it, sending another jolt straight to my PY. Stop feeling guilty or torn, love. Damon didn't seem to care when he messed around, so why do you? Not to mention, I am your mate, not just a random man. He murmured seductively. I felt him throb against me, which only made that fire within me grow. Pull away. But why should I? Damon himself said we needed to work on this. And although there was so much to talk about, so much to discuss, that desire deep within me wanted something more. Just a little. There was just something about Liam that threw me off completely since my return. This Liam took what he wanted, that dangerous, dominating possessiveness surrounding him was so strong I couldn't escape him. I sighed when his fingers brushed my inner thighs, making my eyes burn into his. I almost stopped breathing, seeing the unmasked raw hunger in his now magnetic blue ones. I licked my now dry LPS, my heart thumping even louder when his gaze dipped to my LPS once more. Before I could even comprehend what was happening, his LPS crashed against mine in a sizzling KSS. Sparks erupted inside, coursing through me like a storm that saw no end. Chapter 29. Raven. Slowly, I kissed him back. My heart was pounding as my body involuntarily arched into him. My arms snaked around his neck, my fingers brushing the short hair at the back of his head. The feel of his lips, the taste of his mouth, everything was just perfect. Suddenly, I was flipped onto my back and he was straddling me. My heart thumped, yet I couldn't stop kissing him. Kissing Liam was something I had wanted since I was a teen and goddess. A drunk Liam's kiss was good, but this one. This was where I belonged. This felt so right. We felt so right. I won't rush you, love. He murmured before placing a final kiss on my lips, moving back and laying on the bed next to me before pulling me into his arms as if I weighed nothing. My heart thundered and I clutched onto his shirt, tightly curling into him. He was huge and I felt tiny in his arms, but it felt so right. The prickle of tears stung my eyes, and I fought them away. What? I don't cry. Why did this have to be so complicated? Why did someone have to be hurt regardless of the outcome? I didn't even know how two mates would work, I don't know what to do. Why couldn't it have all been simple? As if sensing my turmoil, he rubbed my back comfortingly. I placed my leg between both of his, blushing when his package pressed against my. His scent and warmth were so comforting, and that emptiness that had accompanied me every night in bed for the last 3 years somewhat lifted. I wanted to talk to him, I wanted to ask him so many things, but the fear that if I opened my mouth I'll start crying kept me silent. Talk to me. His voice came through the link. My LP quivered. Tell me what's on your mind. He asked softly. I wish things could be simple, I understand your point too. I just don't want anyone hurt, but I realized that even together, someone will feel hurt often. I whispered. Don't think about it, Damon and I will figure this out. He said coldly, and although he said that, I knew the meaning was not the same as what Damon had meant. Tell me, do you feel the exact same way about both of us? I shook my head. You both are opposites. Damon is like that soothing warmth of security, happiness, and safety. I said, now finally looking up at him. I know he'll always be that friend I can just be myself around. His jaw ticked and he raised an eyebrow. And you? You consume me, I can't think straight when I am around you. You are the promise of unconditional love and passion, I blushed, looking down once more. I'm waiting, love. I lose my mind around you. You're that electricity that keeps me on edge, fulfills me, and I know that you will always protect me from anything and everything. I looked up slowly, and he smirked. So basically, Damon's a friend, and I'm the mate material. He said, and I could sense his satisfaction. I frowned, looking away. Did I think about kissing them both when awake? Maybe a few times here and there, but it was the emotional connection that I yearned for. Yes, maybe I thought of Liam more, a lot more. But that was because our dynamic has always been different. I always saw him as someone I loved, whilst I saw Damon as a friend first. The bond is there. But without it, if you had to choose. Liam, let's not do this. I pleaded. Fine, as I said, we'll figure it out. He said coldly. I love you, Liam. I want to help you. He was going through so much. I hugged him tighter, feeling him throb against my leg, but I still didn't let go of him. His scent, the way his body molded so perfectly with mine. A silence fell between us and I could sense his irritation lessening. Tell me how you got your scar. I whispered, not daring to look up. He let out a slow breath, as if pondering where to start. It was on one of our training visits up north. Me and some of the boys were out for some drinks and there was this alpha who was being towards us. He was from another country, so obviously British pack laws under Alejandro didn't apply to him and was acting like a entitled dipshare. He was too full of himself and I needed to vent. I may have underestimated him a little as he was carrying a blade laced with poison and was trying to gouge my eye out. I managed to do a number on him with his own knife too, until Rehan pulled me off him. He said, not sounding very impressed. I jerked back, staring up at him shocked. Liam. You have never been so impulsive. I was shocked. Yet. Well, things change. He said, his voice cold once more. But even then, despite the coldness in his voice, his embrace was warm. He looked down at me. Raising one hand, he brushed my hair back, sending tingles of pleasure through me. I like this color better, he said quietly, and the length. My heart skipped a beat, my stomach fluttering at his compliment as he pushed my bangs back off my forehead, looking into my eyes. I always kept them long so I could hide behind them if needed. Our hearts raced, and as much as I wanted to kiss him, I wasn't ready for more. Thanks. So I see you got a tattoo. What's it off? I asked curiously. Is that your way of asking me to strip? He asked. No, I said, trying to ignore his tantalizing touch. I'll show it to you sometime. He said, his gaze falling on my LPS once again. Liam. Have you noticed your eyes sometimes darken, like not your wolf's eyes, I mean they go really dark, like navy? I asked hesitantly. The slight softness that had been in his eyes vanished and he looked at me sharply, frowning. No, what do you mean? When you tore my shirt. Your eyes weren't normal. I said softly, reaching up. I caressed his jaw. The prickle of his stubble felt good against my fingertips. I didn't want him to get angry, but it was eating up at me. His brows knitted together and he clenched his jaw. Are you sure you weren't just imagining that? He asked. I gasped, jerking away, my cheeks burning as I glared at him. Hey! Nice! He remarked as I scooted away, grabbing the gummy bears. Of course it's nice, and cute, I've worked out a lot. I grumbled, frowning as I looked at him. Was he trying to change the topic? Liam. I'm serious, I didn't imagine those eyes. Even earlier in your office, when you were playing with that knife, your eyes changed, and it didn't seem normal. I felt like an I shouldn't have mentioned it. He clearly didn't believe me, and I know it didn't really make sense either. Never mind, maybe you're right and it's just me. I said, brushing my hair back. You don't actually believe that? He said, seemingly thinking about something. There's something I wouldn't mind a second opinion on. He said, getting off the bed and walking into his closet. I wondered what he meant, glancing at the TV that no one was paying attention to. He returned after a short while holding an old book. What's that? I asked curiously, as he picked up the remote and put some music on instead. Not a wise move, Blue Eyes. He walked to the bed, my heart skipping a beat at just the thought of one day this being permanent. I pushed the thought away when he sat down on the bed, frowning deeply. Grandma Amelia left me this book. Inside it was this note and a card I used to always draw when she did our readings. I don't have any idea what it means. He said hesitantly. I knew he wasn't sure if he should share. I took the card and note, frowning as I stared down at it. I knew a little about readings and this card definitely depicted darkness. You drew this card? I asked, feeling my stomach knot uncomfortably. Yeah, 3 times. After that, she refused to read our cards. He said, settling back on the bed. His shirt rode up slightly as he flipped the book open, showing off his defined V. I looked away quickly and down at the card, frowning. Why not ask Rayhan to ask his mate? I'm sure they'll know what it means. I said. His mate's powerful, Kia said so. That's an idea actually. I looked online and didn't find SHT. This card doesn't exist in normal tarot cards. That's because I doubt these are just any cards. We all know of Grandma Amy's lineage. I said, staring at the card. And if you don't want to share why you want to have this card read, I'm sure they won't question you. It's not that late. Let me see if he's awake. He grabbed his phone, typing a quick text before dropping the phone on the bed. What's that book about? I asked. She left it to me. It's about a curse on the Deimos line and the prophecy of light and darkness. He said. That piqued my interest, but before I could even ask if I could have a look, his phone started ringing, an incoming video call from Rayhan. Let's hope she has answers. Liam muttered. Chapter 30. Raven. I hadn't seen Rayhan in a while and I was super curious to see Delsanra. Everyone said she was really gorgeous, not to mention Dante was crazy over her. Liam sat up answering it as he held his phone in front of him to reveal a shirtless Rayhan. From the look of his wet hair, it was clear he had just showered. Liam, hey Raven. He said, giving me a small smile. Rayhan, Liam said emotionlessly, that mask that had lowered a little was back up. I had a feeling Rayhan knew we were mates because that knowing smirk, which he was now giving Liam, kind of gave that away. How are you and your family? Liam asked. Good. Rayhan said, but despite that smile, the sadness in his eyes pulled at my own heartstrings. Alpha Raphael. Kitten, come here. Rayhan said, turning away. Oh, I wanted to see his pretty kitten. I waited for Delsanra to come into view and soon she did. She was gorgeous. Her skin was pale yet glowing, or that might just be an afterglow. Her pure white hair was dry and fell around her shoulders. She was dressed in a red satin dressing gown from what I could see. Hi, Alpha Liam, she said, her startling blue eyes now meeting mine. That's Raven. Rayhan said. Raven, she said, curiosity flitted in her eyes. I saw her gaze flicker to Liam before a knowing smile that I swear reminded me of Grandma Amy crossed her face. Nice to meet you, I'm Raven, Kia's friend, I said, trailing off, suddenly feeling awkward. Delsanra, nice to meet you too, Raven. She said. So, I'll get to the reason I called, I won't take up too much of your time. Liam said as Rayhan situated Delsanra in his lap, the phone angled on their faces. Another perfect couple. I smiled gently, loving the way Delsanra was snuggled into Rayhan's ch3st. Sure, what is it? Rayhan asked, sing her neck. I watched as Delsanra whispered a spell and, before my very eyes, his hair dried back into its natural loose curls. I wanted that. She smiled as she saw me staring. Saves us from using the hairdryer. She said with a small smile. Right, yum yum. It's so cool. I said with admiration. And that nickname is the best. It is, isn't it? I love yum yums. I love them too. I added. Liam gave us both a pointed look, whilst Rayhan chuckled. If you two want to talk, I'm sure you can exchange numbers, Lunas should keep good bonds. He said with a wink. My heart skipped a beat. Luna. Liam's Luna. Our eyes met for a moment before he looked away, flipping the camera, so it wasn't on us and instead pointed at the card he held behind the phone. I was curious as to what this card meant. I found it down at Grandma Amelia's. She had some witch heritage. He explained curtly. I watched the screen, seeing Dulsanra's smile vanish. A frown creased her gorgeous brows and a flash of emotions I couldn't read crossed her face. Rayhan's arms tightened around her as he whispered something to her, sing her neck. She shook her head before giving him a small smile. If it's hard for you, Liam began. No. It's okay. That's a dark card. Of all cards, why ask about this one? She asked. Just answer please. Liam said curtly. Dulsanra sighed. That card shows the darkness in one's life. See the shadow behind it? It's showing that it's taking over the man. On the floor, each body stands for different things. They are begging for forgiveness, help, hope, love, compassion. But the man, he doesn't care. He has become darkness itself. The card can have 3 meanings depending on where it is drawn in a reading. Dulsanra explained. My heart was racing as I listened. If it's the first card that is drawn, it means there is a darkness that is trying to destroy your life or bring ill will your way. If it's drawn second, it means you are going through a dark time and you are at inner turmoil, that your demons are trying to win you over, but the fact that it's drawn second means there's hope and it doesn't mean it's your end. She continued. And if it's drawn third? I asked, my stomach a mess of nerves. It usually won't be drawn third. Dulsanra said, shaking her head. Why not? Liam asked. Because, it would mean that the person is darkness themselves. They have embraced the darkness and lost any ounce of humanity that they once had. That the darkness within them will be their end. So that isn't something that is often possible. Her words seemed to swirl around in my head. Darkness. Lost humanity. No. Grandma Amy was right. His destiny is not set in stone. There was one alpha, years ago who had this card drawn on the third, and he was a monster through and through. She said quietly. So, it means doom. Liam said emotionlessly. More like the birth of a monster. Dulsanra said quietly. That card shows the person has submitted to the darkness within them and embraced it. With it, they will destroy everything in their path, wreaking havoc and carnage, and they'll relish in it. If this had affected Liam, he was doing a good job of hiding it. Who was that alpha? Rayhan asked, frowning slightly. Zidane Malone. Dulsanra said, and Dora regretted losing him, saying he was the perfect depiction of darkness, Sh.T. Liam's granddad. Liam was looking down. I didn't miss the way he swallowed before looking at them smoothly. Night. Thanks for your time. Good night, nice seeing you, Raven. Rayhan said. You too, night guys. I said as Dulsanra gave me a small wave before Liam cut the call. Liam, don't. He said, standing up and running his fingers through his hair. I don't get it. Zidane was from the Ashton line. But he was still my blood. The book she gave is about the Deimos line. Is it a coincidence that we both drew the same card? Because I wouldn't ever want to be referred to as similar to him. That bastard was sick. You are not him, Liam. I said, standing up and walking over to him. He looked at me, his eyes flashing magnetic blue. How can you be so sure, Raven? The uncertainty in his eyes that he tried to hide, made my heart clench. I shook my head, because I believe that Liam could never be darkness. I won't believe that, Liam. You have always been so caring, loving, and used to be. I no longer am. He said coldly, turning away from me. That book mentioned the prophecy of light and dark and a curse. I guess it could have the answers. He grabbed the book, but I could feel his anger and irritation rise. Hey, we'll look together, relax. I said softly. There was something else worrying him, I could see it in his eyes. Liam. What is it? There's something else that's eating up at you. I asked, cupping his face. He wouldn't look in my eyes. His heart was racing and his aura was swirling around him. She wasn't wrong, Raven. There is something dark inside of me. There are times I just want to destroy everything, an anger that I want to unleash upon everything and everyone. His words were quiet and icy, sending worry coursing through me. There is a darkness inside of me, Raven, and I can't deny that, because I feel like I'm always battling to rein it in. He said, his voice so hushed and icy that it sent a chill through me, yet it wasn't his sentence that made my blood run cold. It was the dark navy of his eyes that now bore into mine. Chapter 31 Raven. Despite my beating heart, I cupped his face, feeling those sparks course through me at our touch. Then, I'm going to be right by your side. We are going to figure this out. I'm sure Grandma Amelia gave you that book for a reason. I said softly yet firmly, biting my lip when he grabbed my hips, yanking me against him. His eyes returned to normal as he frowned deeply. You're probably right, he said quietly. Letting go of me, he grabbed the book and was about to read it when he swore. I got to go, he said, standing up. What is it? I asked nervously. Was it another killing? Zack may have found something. Stay here, I'll be back. Okay, I'll read the book until you come back. See if I can figure something out. I replied. Sure. He leaned down, placing a chaste kiss on my forehead, just the way he used to years ago. Our eyes met, my heart skipped a beat and he gave me a smirk. You're gorgeous. Have I ever told you that? My mind was blank, not expecting that. My stomach was a mess of butterflies. He chuckled before walking to the window. And cute. With that, he was gone. I pouted, I hated it when I got tongue-tied. I huffed, scooting back on the bed and resting my back against the headboard. I flipped the book open, now becoming serious. Grandma Amelia never did something without a reason. This book had to be the answer. I flipped through it, skimming through it to start with, refreshing my mind on the different wolves' heritage and the original families. Of course, we all kind of come from these lines, but as time passed, many were mated to humans. Hence how the lines expanded and became weaker, and only certain wolf lines came from the original lineages. Each of the 4 lines had special abilities. The Volkovs were the most different. They were the first of the Lycans. It is said a Lycan is born every few centuries and only one at a time would ever exist. Then we have the Ashton line, which had the gift of healing that sometimes popped up throughout history, but they were rare. Then there was the Solaris, who could control nature, creating more fertile lands and, at times, even command nature. This line was the least known. The final one was the Deimos, who had the ability of speed, a sixth sense and the ability to foresee the future. Abilities that both Kiera and Dante had inherited. The Deimos curse. I slipped into the sheets as I began reading the origin of the curse. The original Deimos wolves, like the Solaris and Ashton, were arrogant, powerful and gifted. They were seen as gods by the werewolf kind. Back when the gods walked the earth, there was a certain Deimos prince who upset Helios, the god of the sun, after challenging him to a match, not knowing that he was talking to a god. After being made a mockery of, Helios told the Deimos wolf Andronikos that he would make sure that the Deimos line perished and yielded to the darkness that would one day destroy them. Andronikos simply laughed at him, saying they were far too strong to ever be destroyed completely. However, Helios stayed true to his word and the Deimos powers began to diminish. Andronikos' sons and grandsons did not hold anything special in comparison to him. However, of course, Selene too held power, and so she countered Helios' curse with her own decree. She declared that when one of the original lines was mated with a Deimos, their offspring would be able to channel their Deimos blood and, in this way, preserve the Deimos power. I looked up, mulling over what I had read. Kiera. This all pointed to Kiera. What I didn't get was, how did this come to Liam? How did it involve him? I took a handful of gummy bears, eating them slowly as I continued to read. Helios vowed to Selene that his curse was not so easily broken, that there would be repercussions for such an act. Selene loved her wolves dearly, and so she sought a way to break the curse. That leads us to the birth of the prophecy of light and darkness. I rubbed my head. This was a lot to take in, and the worst thing was that some of the words and story were missing. I was getting a headache from scrutinizing the faded pages. Liam wasn't even back yet. 2 hours had passed and it was pouring down outside now. Turning the page, I looked at the paragraph before me. The prophecy itself. When the promise of the sun and the wish of the moon clash, as different as day and night itself, the birth of the two shall weaken the curse. From light and darkness itself, the blessed wolf and the royal prince, only then, give the gift of breaking the curse. Alas, if fail, the curse shall end the Deimos for eternity. Remember when the light gives birth to a. I frowned, trying to read the word. But I couldn't read it. Shaking my head, I continued. The darkness will rain through the veins of the Deimos prince. Find the key within the darkness to break the curse, before the 7th blood moon end the curse, or yield to the darkness. If all fails, under the blood moon, you shall take your final breath. Will the Deimos line end or will it survive? The answer lies within. Ugh, that was so complicated. Flipping the page over, I searched in his bedside drawer, taking out a notebook and a pen, then began to look at the explanation and jot down key points. Okay, this makes more sense. With each sentence and cross-referencing it back to the Deimos curse, I felt like I was on to something even if it didn't give any answer on how to break the curse. But as I continued to delve deeper, my stomach was a knot of nerves, and the fear that this could become Liam's reality hurt me painfully. Another hour had passed before the window opened and Liam entered, clad only in a pair of joggers, something that told me he had shifted. Water trickled down his chiseled abs and into the band of his pants, making my heart beat wildly. My gaze ran over his body, but it was the tattoo on his chest that caught my eye. Along with the comp and the symbols, there was a bird, a raven. My heart thundered as Liam turned away quickly, as if realizing what I was looking at. He walked into his closet, reappearing in a t-shirt. Liam, that tattoo. It's nothing, he said coldly. I frowned, but didn't push it. I don't know what happened, but I could tell he wasn't in the best of moods. Is everything okay? Yeah, he said, running a hand through his wet locks, making the usually strawberry blonde locks look a lot darker. Find anything? Actually, yes. How much of this book have you read? Up until the light and darkness part, he said, grabbing a towel and beginning to dry his wet hair. Okay, so basically the prophecy talks about how Selene and Helios tried to counter each other, and in the end, Selene's final attempt was that a pair of twins would be born, and only then will there be a chance to break the curse. The birth of the Deimos Prince, you, and the blessed wolf, Kiera. It also says how a blessed wolf has no darkness in them, but there can't be light without darkness. So, where there is only goodness and light in Kiera, you inherited the darkness. Your birth was said to have weakened the curse, and then there's something about when Kiera gave birth possibly to Dante. I'm assuming that is when your darkness will reign. Do you think that's around the time you felt this darkness within you, or would you say it's when the twins were born? I asked, looking at him. He was silent, listening with a frown on his face. Possibly when Dante was born. Although I was angry with the entire mate situation at that time. He muttered. So, our mate situation only fueled it. It's almost like a catalyst that made that darkness come out, I murmured thoughtfully. Maybe. He said, frowning. Anything else? I looked down at the notebook. It says you will either relinquish yourself to the darkness and thus meet your end and with it, the end of the Deimos line, or you will find the key to breaking the curse within. Hence releasing your true potential and destroy the darkness that is trying to consume you. Along with it, the curse forever. I would say it's all if I didn't know better. He muttered. That card says I am darkness, so we got our answer. End of story. This darkness will be the end of me. It won't be. I said coldly, my eyes flashing. You will not be the end of this line. It says within 7 blood moons. How many blood moons have we seen since Dante's birth? I trailed off, counting off in my head. He was born right after that fateful day when I found my mates. We have had 6, which means we have less than 3 months until the next one. I have 3 months. He said in a flat voice that held no emotion. 3 months before we might lose Liam. Just the thought terrified me. No, never. Grandma Amelia said you can decide your own destiny. I said firmly. Trust me, Raven, this darkness isn't going anywhere. He muttered coldly, tossing the towel aside, so what? I have 3 months or so before I die and this darkness consumes me. Great, then let's find this killer. It's the least I can do in my short term as the worst alpha of the Blood Moon Pack. Once I'm gone, it will do everyone good. He said icily. He was on edge and he was angry. I could sense his emotions despite him trying to keep them hidden. There's got to be answers, there's got to be a way. I will find the answer. This book must have something more to it. I said desperately, getting out of the warm bed. His back was to me and I was worried. I don't have time to waste on a stupid book and a curse. I have a pack to run, and things to do. I reached out, placing a hand on his back. Liam, this is about I'm nothing special, Raven. Maybe me dying is best for everyone. He snapped, spinning around and making me flinch at the anger that whirled around him. His eyes blazing magnetic blue. How can you say that? Liam, you dying doesn't solve anything. I exclaimed. Doesn't it? Maybe that's why you were given 2 mates, because if I died, you'd have a backup mate. At least dying means I'll catch a break from all this SHT that goes on in my head. Those words stung. It hurt knowing Liam kept questioning why. The fact that he was tired of his own mind. This pack needs an alpha. I pleaded, frustrated. Kiera's kids hold our blood, they can take over. He growled. I know the bloodline continued through the alpha heirs. Kiera's kids didn't count in this equation, even if they contained the Deimos abilities. They were Alejandro's legacy of the Nightwalker pack, not the Blood Moon pack. I pursed my P.S. Liam was far too angry to reason with right now. I walked over to the bed, gathering up the card, notebook, and book. You do whatever you think is right. I'm going to find an answer, with or without you. Because I am not going to see you just give up without a fight. I said quietly. Good night, Liam. Why are you trying so hard? He asked when I unlocked the door. I paused, looking back at him. Because I will never give up on someone I love. I said softly. I remember the little blue-eyed boy who would always take care of me as a child. The first person to look out for me and show me that there were people who cared for me. It was high time I paid that pure-hearted boy back. One who was hidden deep within himself. I didn't wait for a reply, shutting the door behind me. Chapter 32. Liam. We thought we had a lead, but the rain washed it away. By the way the marks were left along the far side, it was clear a body had been dragged along the northern side of the forest. What confused me was that it was almost as if the person knew exactly what angles the cameras were positioned at. Which made me even more annoyed. It meant there was a high chance that the killer was on the inside of the IT or surveillance department. I had told Zach and Damon that I wanted to question every person again, but they had been against it. I was tired of being told how to run my pack. Coming back to my room, seeing Raven sitting there in my bed telling me how I might not even live past the next blood moon was the icing on the cake. If that were the case, then what was the point of all this? What was the point of hurting her by keeping her around me? What was the point of keeping a good reputation within the eyes of my pack? I should just do this SHT and make sure I find the culprit before the blood moon. If I am to die, then at least I can do one thing right before I go. I dropped onto the bed, her scent still clinging to the pillow, and closed my eyes, my heart clenching painfully. The selfish side of me told me to make the most of the time I had. To love her and spend it with her before it was too late. The bitter truth that I had wasted 3 years of my life left a sour taste in my mouth. I stared at the ceiling, hating how I had just treated her so coldly. This was not something I wanted to worry anyone about, especially not Mom and Dad, and I shouldn't have told her. It wasn't fair on her. If I only had a few months, then I promise I'll spend it well. I don't know how long it had been, but I couldn't sleep. I got out of bed, leaving my room. I locked the door behind me, staring down at the keys in my hands, taking the second before I unlocked Raven's and silently slipped into her room. She was fast asleep. I closed the door quietly behind me. Yet, I kept a key to her room. Who cares? I stared at her. She was holding one of her ugly plus-highs to her chest. Raven was the type of girl who would look past all the cute plus-highs in a shop and choose the ugliest, weirdest one she could find. She was the type of person who thought the neglected ugly animal in the zoo was cute, the type of person who would buy a used item to make someone happy even if she could afford something better. She was different. People hated her energetic attitude growing up, but I loved it, loved her quirky nature, her warmth, and her smiles. But I was hurting her too. She tumbled over, her arms loosening around the ugly god plushie as she pushed the blanket half off her. I found myself quickly admiring her body. She was gorgeous. I just needed something calming to let me sleep. I was hot and cold, angry and calm, but right now I just needed her, wanted her. I was about to slip my hand under her head when she wrapped her arms around my head, pulling me to her chest, snuggling against me. Well. Smirking, I slipped my arms around her waist instead, pulling her against me. Even if we can't be together for long, I would treasure the time that I do have, even if it isn't long. I awoke to a piercing scream. The next thing I knew, I was kicked with full force in the chest. It knocked me off the bed and straight into the shelf beside the window, sending shooting pain through my neck and back. What was that for? I growled, seeing Raven sit up and cross her arms over her cheeks flushed. Why were you squashed against my B00Bs? She shrieked. You pulled me into your arms. I groaned, standing up. At this rate, I won't even live until the blood moon. I didn't. You came into my room and molested my poor little potatoes. She looked down at her first of all. They are nothing like potatoes, way too soft. I said with an arrogant smirk, only resulting in her cheeks darkening. I didn't think she could get even more embarrassed. Secondly, if I wanted to molest them or whatever you just came out with, I would have at least gotten a feel of you. Okay, I was wrong. Her entire face and neck now looked an even darker shade of red as she glared at me, absolutely mortified. Leave. Good morning to you too. I growled, walking over to the bed. I dropped onto the bed on my knees, leaning towards her. She jumped like I had just electrocuted her. Seriously, didn't she realize this just made it a whole lot more fun to tease her? What's wrong? I taunted, smirking when I glanced down at them. Liam, this isn't funny. She growled, about to kick me again, but I yanked her by the ankle, dragging her flat onto her back. A squeak escaped her, and I won't deny it was pretty amusing. I'm actually finding it fun. I growled huskily, about to straddle her when she tried to kick me again. Seriously, love, you really need to learn to behave. Well, news flash, I don't like to behave. In a flash she flipped us over, about to punch me, but I was ready. Grabbing her wrists, I rolled us over, but she pulled to the left. I was not expecting the force. We both fell off the bed and hit the floor, tangled with the duvet. I kicked it off, pinning her wrists to the floor, straddling her hips with both of us glaring into the other's eyes. I was very aware of my morning wood, and the way she wriggled under me only made me throb harder. Let go of me. She pouted, trying to jerk free only for my arm to hit the bedside table, knocking it against the bed frame. Raven, are you okay? I heard something. Followed by a gasp. Both of our heads snapped up to the now open door to reveal none other than Mom standing there looking completely stunned as she took in the scene before her. I glanced down at the way this probably looked, me shirtless with a heart on, Raven a flushed mess. My eyes widened as I stared into Raven's unique, alarmed ones. Chapter 33 Raven. This isn't what it looks like. I squeaked, pushing Liam off roughly, my eyes falling to his heart-on. Goddess, kill me now. Let the earth open up and swallow me whole. Is this karma for all the times I've seen Uncle L and Auntie Red making out and made fun of them? We both got to our feet and Liam quickly sat down on the bed, grabbing the duvet and pulling it onto the bed before very smoothly. I stood there staring at Auntie Red, who was smirking despite the clear confusion in her eyes. She crossed her arms under her big plus eyes and looked between us. I knew she could smell Liam in my room, which meant she knew he had been here for a while. So, I guess I disturbed you guys, she said, clearing her throat. No matter how smooth she was behaving, she was clearly surprised. She now looked at her son, who was running his fingers through his messy locks. His chiseled body was drool-worthy, but now was not the time. He hadn't spoken a word, so I nudged his ankle sharply. Not really, we were just messing around, Liam said with a shrug. Auntie Red C0CKED a brow, and I felt my cheeks burn. Not in that way, we were just. Liam was being annoying, I stated lamely. Auntie Red nodded, her L.P.S. pressed together in a pout, and I noticed she was staring at Liam's tattoo. All right, now how about you tell me exactly what's happening? I know there was something going on between you two, and Damon. And if this is what I think it is, then what do you think it is? Liam asked coldly. Auntie Red entered the room, shutting the door behind her. My assumption from the start was that Raven and Damon ended up as mates, and since you always loved her, you couldn't take it and left. Okay, I was not expecting that. Liam frowned, glaring at the floor. But then Raven left, and I wondered if she couldn't choose between you or her mate. My heart skipped a beat thinking Auntie Red was wrong, yet she had the gist of it. Clearly, I wasn't enough, with or without the bond. You're wrong about whatever's going on, Mom. We aren't kids, so whether we were messing around or not, it really should have nothing to do with you. Liam said, standing up. No, it shouldn't, but when I know it's affecting you and your friends is still none of your business. Liam cut in, curtly brushing past her and leaving the room, slamming the door behind himself. Nice move. Leave me alone to deal with this. I felt a little hurt until his voice rang in my head. I don't want to share anything. If you want to, then go for it, but tell her I don't want her harassing me. I'm sorry for coming to your room like that to begin with. I shouldn't have, I just couldn't sleep last night. My heart skipped a beat and I hid my smile. That's okay, but next time at least wake me up and let me know you're sneaking in. Waking up to see someone in my bed nearly gave me a heart attack. Sure. Expect me tonight then. I rolled my eyes. Was he always so C0CKY? I looked at Auntie Red, who was looking around the room. I saw her examining the edge of the door frame. They did a decent job with the paint, she said, now turning her sage green eyes on me. Yeah, I said, brushing my hair back awkwardly. Want to tell me what's going on with you all? She asked. I looked at her. With everything going on, I could use a proper adult's advice. I fixed the bedding, my stomach fluttering realizing I had spent the night with Liam. It had felt good and I had slept well too. It's a long story, I said. Well then, how about you go get dressed and I'll go grab us some breakfast. I didn't get to reply when Auntie Red turned, leaving me alone in my room. I quickly grabbed some clothes and left my room to use one of the bathrooms. Mind linking Damon in the process. Morning. Good morning, you all right? His deep voice came. A sliver of guilt filled me, thinking how I seemed to forget him when Liam was around. Knowing that he was fighting his own emotions just so this could work. I am. Can we meet later? I want to talk to you about something. Sure, I'd like that. Me too. I replied softly. I finished showering, pulling on my purple lingerie, grey denim shorts and oversized black hoodie. I returned to my room to see Auntie Red sitting on the edge of the bed, a tray of toast, croissants, and pastries with 2 steaming mugs of hot chocolate. I went over and sat on the bed cross-legged. So shoot. I looked at her, thinking this was more awkward than I thought it would be. Okay, so, 3 years ago, Liam and Damon both found their mate. I said quietly. Auntie Red frowned deeply but said nothing. Both of them were mated to me. I continued, not missing the way her eyes widened. Yep, she was not expecting that, but she didn't speak and I appreciated it. Liam couldn't accept it, saying an alpha doesn't share, and I get that. Damon wanted to make it work, but he didn't want to make a move with me until Liam was okay with it. I get that too. I stared at the plate, picking up a toast slice. And what did you want? I don't know, I just wanted everyone to be happy. Understandable, but I mean, What did you want? I don't understand, I asked, confused. Auntie Red picked up a cinnamon bun and crossed her legs. I'm asking what you want without even thinking of anyone else's feelings. Forget the boys, what do you want? I fell silent, pondering on it. In an ideal world, I'd just want a mate who would love me unconditionally. I didn't want anyone to be in pain. I didn't want a complicated dynamic. I want to be happy, I didn't want such a complicated relationship. I said, shrugging. What about the two mates? Not considering their emotions, what was your take on it? I never really thought of that, in that way. Honestly, it threw me off. I don't get how you can have feelings for two people. A mate bond is ideally between two people, and here I'm paired with two separate people, it's not even a three-way bond. It's them two tied to me, but I've always liked Liam, I know. I blushed. Was I that obvious? But after Uncle Aaron died and I was there for Damon, things changed. Before that, he always seemed to have eyes for Kiara, so I don't know, I carried on, telling her a little bit more about the situation and what we had discussed last night. She sighed, leaning back on one hand. I can't believe none of you even talked this out, 3 years of absolutely wasting time. A complete waste of time and still stuck with clearly nothing sorted out. It didn't do any good for anyone. She said. I am going to give my honest opinion. Please do. I said, ready to hear it. Auntie Red did not sugarcoat anything and I think I needed this. Or if you want to pay for more such audiobooks, you can send us a request in a private Facebook group, or join us on WhatsApp, a link is given in the video description. The rest of the audiobooks will be uploaded in the next episode. Join us on Patreon to listen to more unlimited audiobooks.